Hello, and welcome to the October 26th issue triage meeting for Operator SDK. We're going to be going down a list. Seems like we got more than usual today, so let's just go ahead and get started. First up is Helm operator to respond to namespace resources. Oh, and it's super helpful that this menu is... Okay. I'd like to be able to apply a Helm chart in response to a namespace resource using labels or annotations on the namespace resource. I don't know what this means. Does this mean like if namespace foobar exists, apply Helm chart X?
Yes, I think this user had the same issue with Ansible.
Do they mean in a Helm operator, I'd like to apply Helm chart X?
I think that they want the Helm chart to respond to the creation of a namespace resource.
I don't think Helm charts work like that. I don't think they're ever going to work like that.
Well, it seems possible. Maybe we've got this is done on the Ansible side. We do this. I think that they wanted to use the label selector in the watches file, so that might be possible for Helm, but I'm not sure.
Well, hold on. I asked if they meant from within an operator. I guess I'm not clear on what exactly they're asking for.
I think they're trying to watch a specific namespace resource. But
from where, though?
We talked about this last week, right? Wasn't this like the one we were saying namespaces are cluster scoped? And so
whoever that is talking is really quiet. Well, Camilla responded and asked a whole bunch of questions, which I think are meaningful questions, but they haven't responded. So what should we do with this?
I think let's add a comment not to create an enhancement until we discuss it a little more here. I'd hate for them to go through all that work if it wasn't going to be accepted.
Is Camilla here?
She's not.
Oh, okay.
So I think I'll add that comment and then we can just skip it and come back.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll remember that.
I mean, it looks like that's exactly what we did 7 days ago and nothing's happened.
I guess we could just put it on the backlog. I mean, stuff on the backlog can need information. We won't need to triage it again. And if it's on the backlog, it won't get moved forward unless it's a squeaky wheel.
I mean, I would be fine with that, except I thought we were trying to err on the side of things in the backlog, having people assigned to them, or else they just kind of disappear forever.
Well, I think this one could disappear forever. That'd be maybe okay. I mean, and if it wouldn't be okay, hopefully it would get some attention.
Would you mind if you assigned yourself to it? Because the reason I feel bad is Camilla's not here, so I can't like ask her to be like, hey, could you just remember this because you're assigned to it?
Well, I mean, she assigned herself to it, right? So I assume that she's willing to take care of it.
Okay, sure. Samples generation causes problems during release. Joe, are you here?
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a big one I wrote up from our 1.1 release. I can't remember if we talked about this last week or not. Is this what we were going to talk about today in the meeting, or is that something separate?
I don't know what this is, so I'm certainly not planning on talking about this in the meeting. So I think it's separate.
So this one, oh yeah, I think we just didn't have time for this one last time. So this one is basically, we have a problem during our release where we want to have our, so we've recently started generating samples in the repo rather than in a separate repo. So now that we have samples being generated in the repo, we have this piece of the automation that basically guarantees that the samples are up to date with the rest of the repo. What that means around release time is that right before we cut a release, say we are on 1.0 plus a bunch of commits, and we're about to release 1.1. This is what happened last time. So at that point, just before we tag the commit that we want to be 1.1, it has samples that were generated kind of on master. And the way that we generate samples now is we look for the most recent tag, and we use that version as the thing that gets put in the samples. So the problem is that the commit that we tag as 1.1 doesn't have samples generated for 1.1. I think Eric has a PR up that resolves this, which is basically that we're going to have a separate makefile variable that's going to basically say use this version instead of using the get metadata. So when we go to make the 1.1 release, we would, in one of the commits prior to actually cutting the tag, we would set that variable to the version that we're about to release. And then that would cause everything to work the way we expect it to. So that's pretty much the gist. I think overall, like that works and gets us unblocked from like making the next release and having the same problem. I think longer term, I still want to get to the point of not having to do a pre-release PR to be able to cut a release, because that always inevitably ends up, CI fails, CI flakes on the pre-release PR, and you got to get that to pass. And then you make a tag, and then other things happen on the tag that cause things to, the releases just take a long time. So I don't want to derail too much, but I think we have an immediate solution for this that we're going to get merged prior to our next release. Backport to 1.1, I think we should be able to close this prior to 1.2.
Cool. So we can assign Eric, put in the 1.2 milestone.
That sounds good.
Thanks for writing this up, Joe.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, seems straightforward enough. Anything else on this? Create channel in Kubernetes Slack, Operator SDK users.
So I created this originally, or at least I asked Austin to. Maybe a couple weeks ago, I was seeing lots and lots of users coming into the Operator SDK dev channel and asking user questions, which is not unreasonable given that the only channel in the entire Kubernetes Slack with Operator SDK in the name is this one. So I suggested at the time, like maybe we want to have an Operator SDK users channel, which will make the distinction more clear. But we talked about this before. We kind of already have a users channel, just doesn't have Operator SDK in the name. So it's called Kubernetes Operators. At the same time that I asked Austin to make this issue, I also updated the topic or the description of the channel to put that quoted text in that basically says, if you're a user, then go over here. Since then, I personally haven't seen too many more user questions. I don't know if anybody else has, but that seems to have helped. So I'm not as gung-ho on creating a separate SDK users channel as I was when we created this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to try to avoid dividing the user base. If that makes sense.
Totally.
So can this just be closed then? Unless anybody has any objections?
So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to do a comment and close it, but I'm going to invite anyone who has other reasons to reopen. This will be at least a nice place to collect. I assume this idea will come up again and again, so it'll be nice to have this here.
It's not the first time. It's at least the third time we've had this conversation.
If it does keep coming up, then maybe that is enough of a reason to make it, in which case we can reopen it.
Yeah, but now we have a place to track how many times it comes up.
Agreed.
Totally.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize who that was, but you said you're going to drop a comment and close it?
That was Austin.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this? What kind of license should be used for the GPL 3.0 license plugin used in the operator?
I don't know if we're qualified to answer this. I mean,
Well, I think
lawyers. It sounds like they're mixing Apache 2 and GPL 3, right?
I don't see anything that says Apache 2.
I think, I could be wrong, but I think when we scaffold out a project, it gets an Apache 2 license.
Well, I think
But they're using GPL 3.
oh, they
Ansible
use
Galaxy.
GPL 3.
Yeah.
Well,
We are not
looking at
qualified to give an answer on this. All I will say, or all I think we should say, is these are the licenses. Like, you're correct, these are the licenses that exist. Talk to whoever you need to in your organization, or do research yourself on how to do this, because I don't want to make a statement that might be false.
I mean, that's all well and good, but where do we say what licenses we use to bake into things? Because I imagine that's probably information we should provide.
Well, it's in the source repo.
Well, the only thing that matters from a user repos perspective, as far as I know, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure we scaffold a license file in the root of the project. So that is basically like the license for that project that gets scaffolded.
Yeah, I think their concern is that they're using a collection from Ansible Galaxy that's GPL 3. So I think this is going to be I think we aren't qualified to answer this, but I think this is sort of a core use case. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to hit up some Red Hat lawyer and see if they're willing to chime in.
Sorry, I'm not familiar. What is Ansible Galaxy?
Ansible Galaxy's where they store Ansible collections. Think like a rel repo for Ansible stuff.
Is it a great big one in the sky, or is it? Okay.
It's just a repository for Ansible stuff.
I just dropped a link in our chat that talks about GPL compatibility. We can link that. It looks like it's official from the apache.org, so that might help. I would rather say if CNCF has people, that we ask them rather than Red Hat lawyers. But I don't know if CNCF has lawyers on staff or someone that is qualified to answer this question.
But really,
They definitely have people who are qualified to answer this question, but they might not be lawyers.
But aren't they? This is their operator. So can't they license the operator the way they want?
I think the question is, can they license it the way that they want if they're using this GPL thing?
Okay. And so that to me it goes back to not really SDK, CNCF, or Red Hat.
You're right. They should file this issue with the Ansible Galaxy collection.
Maybe not even then, because it's more of a question of, I've created an operator. I'm using library. It's just like if I created any program that was Apache 2, or I decided it's going to be Zeus license and I pulled in GPL 3, I need to go figure out how to get that determined if that's valid It's not, even though I used Golang to create this code, or Austin's script to create it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's on Austin's script to determine if this is compatible.
Part of the problem for Ansible and Helm operator may be that they're incorporating Apache 2 code via the base image. So regardless of what they want their project to be, they have to understand the implications of using both an Apache 2 base image and a GPL3 Ansible collection. But I agree, like,
It sure would be nice to get a blog post. I feel like this is going to be a problem that every user would.
Well, but I feel like to reiterate, I feel like we're not really qualified to answer this question. I feel like we should mention that the base image comes with Apache 2 stuff baked in, and wherever you go from there is kind of your own personal responsibility.
Yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with like operators or projects specifically. This is just like a general license question, like
Well,
compatibility.
they don't mention the Apache 2 stuff that's baked into the base image, which makes me wonder if they know about it.
Regardless, we need to come up with something actionable that's not us telling them what to do. I think providing that link and then saying like maybe reach out to like support at cncf.io or whatever their CNCF support link is with this question.
Do you think CNCF support's willing to do like legal advising?
I have no idea. And so because I don't have an idea and I don't think anybody else does, why don't we just assign somebody to do this research and find the appropriate link for this person? I can take it on if nobody else wants to. I'd prefer to assign somebody who hasn't tackled an issue in a while.
This is Jesus, JM Rodri. You can assign me. I've had to deal with this before, so.
I can sort of hear you, but your mic is switching between super quiet and the right volume.
Okay.
And he said he could pick it out.
Yeah, he did.
And do we want to put this in the backlog?
Yeah. And triage.
Is this better?
No, that's worse.
Triage.
That's quiet and
Fix.
there's static.
Hate Zoom.
How do we feel about like a won't fix tag or something like that? I think we have that in triage.
Not our problem label.
I mean, I think what we do is we put the link and close it.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. All right. We can just, I guess, forego labels for now since we're just going to do that. That's fine.
Anything else on this? Make run fails for scaffolded Ansible operator with roles. This is an Ansible role that's missing?
Sounds like somehow this possibly, I mean, obviously we'd have to try to reproduce this, but possibly if you use generate role and generate playbook, maybe the wrong thing happens.
It
Unclear.
should, that I tested that. The playbook should call the role.
Austin, would you mind?
But yeah, assign me. Let's go ahead and go with the 1.2.
Okay. Sounds like we've already done some investigation, but yeah, try and reproduce it. Anything else on this? Custom resource metrics in Ansible operator. There's a lot of Ansible stuff today. Are there any best practices to retrieve metrics related to a custom resource managed by an Ansible operator? Anybody who knows about Ansible operators know how to do this?
I think that there's Prometheus scaffolded out. Am I wrong?
There
should be.
is. I think Fabian and I were talking to someone, but not this person, about giving Ansible playbooks a way to register their own metrics such that they show up in the Prometheus exporter that exists already. But it was going to require like basically writing a generic web server that is listening on the operator that you could end up basically calling from the playbook to kind of do a callback. I don't know if that's what this person is asking for, but it sounds similar at least.
All right. Say let's put this on the backlog. Assign me, and I'll ask Fabian what he has to say about this.
Sorry, who's me?
Austin.
I mean, it seems like unless they're really trying to retrieve metrics, unless they're really trying to like bake this into their Ansible operator at a very close level, it seems like this is just like, how do I retrieve metrics for a custom resource, right? Like nothing.
Well, I think the two things that tip me off as them wanting to do something specific is the, for example, the stat, like at the very top where they say like the status of a specific custom resource, it seems like I have to write an exporter. So what it sounds like they're asking for is, I have something in the status of one of my custom resources that I want to be exposed as a metric. Do I need to write my own exporter for them? And I think what I was trying to say is, right now the answer is basically yes, unless we like provide something in the Operator SDK, Ansible utils collection, and also add something on the Ansible operator that knows how to take those and register them the right way in the exporter. That's what it sounds like to me, at least.
Well, maybe I misunderstood. I was more interpreting this as like, how do I get metrics about my custom resources to flow out of the place that all the rest of my Kubernetes cluster metrics come out of?
I mean, that's possible. The part below where it says, I can see the following, and they say like, oh, I can see resource created at, I can see these. And it says only, sounds like they want to see more.
Those are the ones that we do put out.
Right.
Okay. Austin, you said you'll ping Fabian about this.
Yep.
Anything else about this? Make test links fails when Hugo's Doxy theme is not installed.
Yeah. So Doxy's theme is installed as a Git submodule inside of our website directory. And so if you attempt to make the links, we've got a Docker container that will actually do the Hugo building for you, but it won't work unless you've run the command that Camilla mentioned here. So we can just add this to the script or the make target before it invokes Docker. I think that'd be fine.
Sorry, why does it need to be installed locally if the thing's actually getting built in a Docker image?
Because so this is not a part of Hugo. This is a theme which we can consider part of the website. So that
We're
portion of
mounting
it
the
lives in-
website into the image. And the
Okay.
theme is one of the things that gets mounted into the image to do the
Thanks,
checkbox
Joe.
stuff.
Is there a particular reason? I mean, I don't know anything about Doxy, but a particular reason this is a Git sub module instead of in the, well, I suppose vendors really only for Golang.
As far as I know, that's just how Hugo does things.
I mean, if we wanted to, so Austin, I can't remember, are we using upstream Doxy or are we using a fork of it?
We're still using the fork.
So we have like a fork in maybe Operator Framework Doxy or something like that. And then
yeah.
And then we have three separate websites, all on the same domain. SDK.Operator Framework, OLM.Operator Framework, and then just Operator Framework. All three of which are using this forked theme, I think. So basically the idea is like it's easier to make the changes for the theme in one place and then have each of the repos depend on that.
Yeah, and even if we weren't using a fork, this is the way that it would work.
Is there any objections to just making make test links do this?
I'm curious, like, is that item potent, one, and two, what happens when like I've got a commit that I need to change the commit of the submodule or something? Like, are there going to be weird cases where that blows up where we should leave it separate?
I don't think so.
I mean, if
You never run it, except for that one time. So either it's broken. In other words, I'm broken, so that's why my links should never pass.
I think
don't
this
know.
is just, I think it's not necessarily idempotent. Like if some commit changes the submodule commit, then this would refresh that.
Which
But-
theoretically you would want.
I think
Yeah.
that's okay.
But if you've done it before and it hasn't changed, this should be completely idempotent.
Well, I think the reason it hasn't changed probably is because we've never changed the commit of the submodule that we pull, right?
That's right.
But as soon as we change that, then everyone would need to rerun this to get the update, which maybe is a good reason to do this because people could be running make tests locally without knowing that they need to refresh their submodule.
It's true. Actually, that's like, this is the number one thing that people ping me about with the docs. So just having this happen automatically sounds great to me.
Then
I
I
say
would
we try it. Yeah, and if it breaks something, we can reevaluate.
Okay, I can take a look at this. When do we want this to happen by?
I don't think it's super urgent.
But it's also super easy.
Yeah. So really, Jonathan, whenever you think you can have the time to look at it.
Well, I've got a lot of time and nothing to do until the CI meeting that's happening immediately after this. So I can put it in 1.2. It's also not like super critical, so if it slips, it's not really a big deal.
Totally.
But yeah, I agree. It's probably pretty useful. I'm sorry. Did anybody else have anything to say about this before we move on? Scorecard. Oh man. Produce a better error response when RBAC blows up inside cuddle. Did you know this guy?
He's the
Yeah,
scorecard author.
Oh.
That's Jeff. I work with him pretty regularly on it.
Do you know anything about this, Ken?
This, there was an issue recently raised by Pete. I'm not sure where Pete is working from, perhaps Europe, but he's a Red Hatter. He was having an issue just recently, and I assume that this might be the issue that he was running into. Tests weren't running, and there's nothing in Cuddle that manages anything with RBAC at all, so it has to be outside of that. I don't mind taking a look though and trying to understand it. I could also hit up Jeff, see if he has more details.
I mean, is it possible to write a test that accesses things that you might not have permissions to?
Again, Cuddle doesn't, so I guess he's saying it is scorecard, which is a good thing. But from a Cuddle standpoint, it just assumes you have full rights. And we've done a lot to make sure that if you don't, somebody has to manage it outside of that. So I think that's what this is implying.
Well, I think the actual issue he's complaining is that if that happens, you get a blank result. It doesn't say, hey, you don't have permissions. It just tells you nothing.
You know what? That's actually a good point. I could probably add some things in Cuddle to. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. This actually, Jonathan, since you said that, this might be upstream. I'll look at that today.
Okay.
I think this is at least something that's also an SDK thing, because scorecard, the scorecard Cuddle test image should always, in my opinion, return the something in the scorecard test result output, regardless of what it gets from when it runs Cuddle.
Well, I don't know
That's
how
a great point.
that works from the point of view of inside a container. If you try, like,
it's a weird thing, maybe someone could clarify, but just to set the stage, Cuddle and Scorecard are inside of their image, and they are run against an operator. So
I think I can explain this a little bit.
Yeah,
so the idea is an operator developer has a scorecard configuration file, which basically is a list of really simple pod specs. And every pod spec is going to be run by a scorecard when you run, Operator SDK scorecard. And each of those pods is expected to handle, basically to write a certain output format, which is the Operator SDK scorecard result V1 Alpha 3 format. So what's happening here is that a user has decided they want to run, so there's a scorecard Cuddle image that knows how to run Cuddle in a pod in the cluster with some Cuddle configurations, and then wrap the output from Cuddle in a scorecard V1 Alpha 3 test result, and then write that to the log, where then scorecard knows how to read that and return it to the user. So I think the problem here is potentially twofold. And I don't know, Ken, it sounds like you're saying that Cuddle itself might need to output something a little more helpful. But even regardless of that, the scorecard Cuddle wrapper is not putting anything in its result either. So by the time it gets back to the user, there's literally nothing that tells the user that a test even happened potentially.
Yeah, here's where my head is. One, I don't know what Cuddle does if you have RBAC issues. So I want to understand that. Two, I think you made a really great point that if we have a report that's being generated, it has to be a successful report. Not that it has to have successful results in it, but there has to be something machine readable. And then there's a third piece, which still makes sense to track on the Operator SDK side. There could be or may need to be some things to instrument on the scorecard side. So those are three separate things.
The thing I'm curious about is, I have no idea how Cuddle works, but does it go into the front end and attempt to authenticate with the API server directly and talk to, Kubernetes that way? Or does it
It actually
directly?
Well, you can always override it with kubeconfig, but it basically takes whatever the current context is and it leverages that. So it's however you're logged in, and you'll be happy to know I actually finished doing my video for a Cuddle at KubeCon. So I would love to release that when I can.
Is this for a session at KubeCon or?
Yeah, Friday, November 20th or something. I also added in a plug to Operator SDK. So there's one slide in there for that.
Nice. So Jonathan,
Okay.
just to answer part of your question, in this case, Cuddle is running in a pod and is using the service account of the pod to authenticate to the API server.
Okay, cool. Ken, do you want me to assign you to this?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
When do we want this to happen by?
That's a tougher one. November 2nd.
I mean, it sounds like another. It's really.
You know what? Yeah. Let's just target that. I think we're good. I'm definitely looking at the Cuddle side today. So and I'll work with Jeff on the rest of it.
Okay. Anything else on this? The releases thing, we got still a couple to work through. Investigate different methods of generating the changelog. Eric?
Yeah, sorry about that. So with this new release work that I'm working on, we're switching to Go Releaser to build binaries and publish releases. The Go Releaser tool itself has a changelog generator within it that uses commit messages to create a set of release notes. A lot of projects use that, and it seems to work pretty well for them. It also allows them to not commit a changelog so that they don't have to have like a pre-release commit of any sort. There are other things that we can do to not have a release commit that we can't do quite yet that are related to documentation. So this isn't that big of a deal quite yet, but part of the reason why we would want to do something like this is so that we can stop like having a pre-release commit that contains a bunch of like changelog fragment removals and committing the actual changelog itself. I think that the release notes for a published release are sufficient as changelog and easier to read and better organized. So I put forth this feature as something we should be thinking about over the next, I don't know, few months, maybe sooner, depending on what else we can remove from the release commit. I think this goes back to something we were discussing earlier in this meeting, which is simplifying releases and tagging an already tested commit on master without having to actually change anything about that commit or create a new commit afterwards.
The only thing that this would change is that I think we would have to be a little more, we have to make sure that the commit messages make sense.
Yeah,
Today
we have to stringently check the format of the commit messages. And I think, in the solution description below, I mentioned that that is a reasonable thing to do. We probably should be doing that anyway. Looking back in Git history is difficult when commit messages are not very descriptive and don't follow the format. So you can assign this one to me. I don't think we should put this into a release milestone yet. I think this can stay in the backlog, or we can throw it into something that's pretty far out. But I think backlog for now is okay, and I'll manage putting this into a grooming session agenda in the future.
Okay. Anything else on this?
I don't think that this is really a feature, but I don't want to get hung up on that. But I think
It is.
Do we have like a CI label or something?
I see where you're coming from here, but this is also pretty user facing because we're removing a committed changelog. So I figured feature was okay, but maybe you could put just kind documentation instead.
Yeah, that either one works. Then.
Okay.
We have more than one label. Ah, ha, 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 ha.
That works.
Anything else? FATA 0002 failed to initialize project with version 3 alpha. Not really sure what
That's just the output of our log statements.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so they're having a module issue. I wonder if they're initializing the project in an existing module directory.
Not convinced that this is a Go proxy thing.
I think this is the problem. They didn't replace the example text, and I know it blows up when you don't do that. I don't remember exactly if this is how it blows up, but I know it blows up.
But go back, so it looked like it was complaining about that global sign mgo. Invalid version.
I'm not seeing what you're reading.
2 lines above where it says status 128. It seems like it's some problem with that module. But yes, Eric, I would agree with you that, let's see. No, that is odd because it looks like it's coming from the controller runtime dependency.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, maybe it's Go proxy. It could, I wonder if it's just a flake in
Possible it's
TCP
also
connection.
in their Git settings, their Git defaults.
Wonder what that invalid version means though. That's the thing that has me a little.
Well, it's v0.0.0.
Yeah, but then it has the full date and commit hash, which I think means like that's what Go's going to use, I think. But you're right, v0.0.0.
I think whenever it does v0.0.0, it didn't find a version, so it uses the
right.
commit hash. And
I think that means
did,
there's no tag for that repo. I think that's
Right.
what that means. Yeah. I don't think the -- repo equals github.com/example. I think that should be fine as long as they're not trying to push anything to that.
I would even suggest that they make an issue in the Go repo. I haven't seen anything like this before. I mean, I would expect some other people to have encountered this before. It's a pretty nebulous error, and they probably have filed issues. If they haven't, then this should be filed.
Oh, hold on. Can you scroll back up? Back to their output. I noticed that the origin is in a cache on the extension of the global sign. Yeah, it's located in package mod cache.
I guess we could suggest like doing go clean -mod cache.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't we do that? Say try doing that, and then if this issue persists, I would file an issue upstream, or sorry, in the Go repo.
Okay, I think it was Joe. Could you drop a comment to that effect in here?
Sure.
And what do we want to do with this issue? Do we just want to drop that comment and close it, or?
Backlog it for now.
I think, and we can put it's already got support. Yeah, that's good.
And do we want to? Can we assign Joe to it?
That's fine.
Anything else on this one? Panicking and obtaining normal package dependency. bug open on the Kubernetes version of YAML.
Yeah, I glanced at this and I had no idea.
I don't understand. Do we use this?
Like, yeah,
Oh,
but
the person who filed this reached out to me on Slack, and I responded. If you open the first link, it looks like they're using some weird Go something or other that's like that Go routine 50 X509 load system roots. About 3/4 of the way down the page. That's where they're getting their nil pointer reference. So I said, like, I don't think that's anything to do with YAML or Operator SDK. I think you're getting a nil pointer exception in your Go tooling. So he said, aha, and hasn't responded yet. So
I don't understand why.
I would close this out and say that this is unrelated to the SDK and is a dependency issue.
I think I would probably, rather than dependency, I'd probably say like a Go environment or Go tooling issue.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because it seems like they're using like a different Go distribution, like this Go LLVM, which I have no idea what it is, but it seems like it's the thing that's broken.
Okay. Anything else on this one? How to update an operator with Operator SDK. I have already installed an operator. I don't know how to update it.
There's already an issue for this, because it's a feature request open. If what I think they're asking is what they're asking, which is how do I upgrade an already installed operator?
So I
I
was
can
planning
find
on.
that.
Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think you're the one who's responsible for that feature anyway.
Yeah, I just assigned this to myself. So I think I was going to respond saying that we're implementing a new feature to support operator upgrades, the Operator SDK run bundle upgrade command. And also I was wondering if we could provide the temporary fix for this where we can basically run the Operator SDK cleanup command first and then use the run bundle command if you want to install a newer version.
So we're planning on implementing this as a feature ourselves.
Yes, there's an enhancement proposal on the operator framework already, so we're going to implement this soon.
Well, and I don't actually know that much about OLM, but isn't that the explicit use case of OLM is to manage the life cycle of a deployed operator?
Yeah, we'll be using OLM to perform the operator upgrade.
Oh, sorry. When I said we, I meant Operator SDK.
Yeah, I think this falls under the category of SDK integration with OLM.
So we're going to make the generated. No.
It gives them the ability to test this out to make sure it will work ultimately. And the scenario I see there is they ran it and they're trying to run it again, but it still exists. And I think that's why Rashmi said, if they clean it up, they can run it again and do another test. The run bundle upgrade should allow them to put in another bundle and upgrade the existing one that's already been installed. But it is part of the SDK. And like Austin said, integration with OLM.
Rashmi, I think what I would do is explain your workaround here and put a link to the EP. And if there's another GitHub issue, close it as a dupe. But if there's not, just leave it open.
That sounds good, Austin.
Do you think we will have this merged in the next few weeks for 1.2?
Are you referring to the run bundle upgrade command, or?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So we could put this in 1.3 maybe?
Probably. Maybe.
Well, there's already an issue open for this, so I think we should close that and say this already exists. Rashmi, if you could find that and post a link to it and close this out, that'd
Sure.
be great.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, anything else on this? Well, wait and timeout options with a Helm-based operator.
So this was a question that came in the mailing list, and Daniel suggested that they open a RFE here. Wait and timeout are like Helm CLI options that you can basically say, like, rather than just blindly throwing stuff at the API, like, please wait and make sure that it all works, is the TLDR. The Helm operator blindly throws stuff at the API, and if the API accepts it, then it says, great, I'm done. Basically moves on. If the API fails for some reason, like there's a validation, then Helm operator will kick it back out and say, like, sorry, this failed, and do a rollback. So I think this person is basically saying, I want to have the logic in the Helm operator that effectively, they're asking to, like, actually implement wait in the operator. My response below is basically like, I don't think we should actually block the reconciler to wait for this. So I don't know if this is possible given what exists on the Helm SDK side, but the actual Helm libraries that the Helm operator uses. But I think what we probably should do is see if there's like a function we can call that the Helm library exposes that would basically allow us to say, like, does this thing pass the weight test, or whatever the weight test is, true or false? And if it does, then we can go ahead and say that the release was successful. But if it doesn't, then we just say, like, no, like, not ready yet, requeue. Or actually we wouldn't requeue, because we can watch all the child resources, and if any of them change, then we'll reconcile again and we'll check the condition again. So I think this is a reasonable feature request. The question is, like, is this trivially easy to implement given what already exists in the upstream Helm libraries, or will we have to do some work upstream to make this easy, or will we have to do some work in the SDK to kind of repeat the same tests? So there's a little bit of work here to do regardless, probably.
Okay, would someone like to do that investigation? Not necessarily the actual implementation, but it sounds like we need to do some investigation before we decide on what we want to do.
I would say just leave this up to the issue requester or the feature requester.
We should at least, if we're going to do that, we should probably ask them if they're willing and able to do that. Because a lot of Helm users aren't necessarily Go developers, but we can ask.
Yeah, for sure.
I can follow up if you'll assign me. I can follow up.
I wonder if it's worth throwing a help wanted on this. I mean, I don't think that anybody on the team necessarily wants to work on this right now. I think if this did get a lot of thumbs ups from the community, then we would reconsider. But I don't know. What do you think about that, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Do we want to put this in the backlog, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Anything else on this? Clarify purpose of Ansible operator and Helm operator binaries. Joe?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so Red Hat, we have hack days every sprint, and our director was using Operator SDK and trying some stuff out. And he's like, man, I ran into this issue where I was trying to use Helm operator binary to scaffold some stuff out, and it wasn't working. So I had to explain to him, like, well, the Ansible and Helm operator binaries, they aren't for scaffolding, they're only for runtime stuff. So I thought, like, well, if he's having that problem, then lots of other people are probably at least potentially getting confused as well with that kind of stuff. So I wrote this up and basically said, like, yeah, we have all these release binaries, and we never really explain what the Helm operator and Ansible operator binaries are. So we might want to find a spot in the docs for those if we think there's a logical place for them.
So I've noticed, do we have like architecture documentation? Because the actual structure of what the Golang operator and the Helm operator and the Ansible operator generates are pretty different. Like what pieces get made and where they're running and how they work.
So each operator type, I believe, has a doc about what the project layout is, and kind of a high level description.
Oh, I wasn't necessarily referring to the like the project layout. I mean, like what physical runs.
Yeah, so there are proposal docs for both of them, I believe, in the SDK repo itself, not in the docs website.
Yeah, and there's some getting started docs that might be good to explain this. I can't imagine this would be a problem for anyone who wasn't getting started.
As far as talking about what these binaries do, Joe, I think we should throw this into the README. So it's like right when you get to the SDK repo, like what these binaries are. And then we could probably find a place to do this in the doc website as well.
I don't know. I think the main thing about those binaries is that the user shouldn't have to know about them. So like,
well, the problem is that they show up on the releases page. So they will know about them because they're right there front and center next to the SDK binaries.
Yeah. So just add a note clarifying that they don't need to worry about them, even though they can see them, and just like a note about what they are.
To the help. Because right now, when you say Ansible operator -- help, it just prints out some options, but doesn't give you a description. The SDK gives you more of a description.
We could put this in the FAQ as well.
Because the first thing, if he was hacking, I'm sure the first thing he did was see it. He downloaded it and tried to use it, and he may have
run help. To the instructions later.
Yes, that's exactly what I would do.
But then by then you may have like done some stuff that kind of screwed up your environment. Like who knows what happens at that point, right? So
yes.
I would say like I've heard suggestions for FAQ, README, website, help docs. I don't know. I don't think we should do it in all 4 places. That seems like overkill and just like maintenance burden at that point.
To me,
change the output first and then see if people come back and still complain.
I like that. Yeah, in the CLI help output.
A little issue in that respect then. Can we use this issue to track, make those binaries output text that says you're not supposed to be using this manually?
Totally. I mean, yeah. Doesn't have to be.
Oh, that's good.
I'm sorry, who was me?
Well, I don't
know if anybody.
Oh, sorry, I thought somebody did. I can do this, I guess.
Yeah, if you want. Otherwise, I was going to assign it to Ish. But yeah, that sounds good.
So, well, we're actually over time. I'll write some stuff up in this in a second. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about in terms of issue triage? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.